New videos every day.
Life, wisdom. Today I'm going to reveal the 9 foods you should never eat. Whether you're trying to lose weight or just trying to improve your health and energy levels, these 9 foods are foods I would highly discourage you from eating, and I'm also going to offer you some alternatives as well. My dress today is provided by Light in the Box. I want to thank them so much for this dress. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Alrighty, Diet Coke. So Diet Coke is a beverage that people drink when they're trying to lose weight, usually, right? Because it has the word diet on it. We tend to think that this is something that is gonna help us lose weight, but is that really true? I've done a couple different videos and a few interviews on diet sodas and if they really help us lose weight. Our primary sweetener in this drink is aspartame. Now, aspartame is actually responsible for more FDA complaints than any other food chemical or food additive that there is. Everything from headaches, dizziness, nausea, to learning disabilities and really significant problems. It's actually been found to kill our brain cells even. So aspartame is not doing us any favors. It's what's considered an excitotoxin. So literally it actually excites our brain even more than sugar. And what they're finding now is that it actually causes people to consume more calories and actually get even more hungry. So it's not doing you any favors whether you're trying to lose weight. And then we talk about the neurotoxic effects. The list really goes on and on with problems related to aspartame. So any kind of diet or sugar-free product is going to be loaded with these artificial sweeteners. And avoiding these artificial sweeteners is something that I really highly recommend, something that I personally do, probably foremost to almost anything else, is avoiding artificial sweeteners. So alternatives for Diet Coke. Now, I will just point out that I do actually think that regular Coke is not as bad as Diet Coke. Now, clearly, I'm not telling you that sodas are healthy. I think if people really took all sodas completely out of their diet, they would be amazed at the health improvements and weight loss they experience. But compared to Diet Coke, I would actually prefer that you drink regular sodas and stay away from the artificial sweeteners. But some actual healthy things you could drink, or healthier things, another step up are these flavored sparkling water type beverages. Now again, this is still not something I would consider super healthy because it's carbonated water and natural flavors, which is some weird chemical, we don't know what it is. But at least we don't have the phosphoric acid, the caramel color, the high fructose corn syrup that we have in these. So here's an example of one of these flavored carbonated water beverages. But by far, the best thing you can drink other than water is coconut water. Yummy. So here is my coconut water. It's really important that you go ahead and check the ingredient label and make sure it just has coconut water in it, because there are some out there that have sweeteners and flavors and other stuff in them. But coconut water is great. It is pumped up with electrolytes, naturally occurring electrolytes. It even has some natural sweetness to it. So this is a wonderful beverage, definitely a wonderful beverage to eat while you're working out. It's gonna give you electrolytes like I mentioned. So coconut water is my alternative, and let's see what else comes out of the bag. I wish I was an Oscar Mayer. Mechanically separated turkey. Hot dogs, okay? And this is really gonna apply to pretty much any kind of processed meat product. The way you can tell a processed meat product is that it has an ingredient list. If you are getting an actual cut of meat from a butcher that doesn't have any additives, it won't have an ingredient list, okay? So if you're going to eat meat, make sure it doesn't have an ingredient list. And if it does, then at least make sure that you don't see mechanically separated chicken or mechanically separated other meats. So what this mechanically separated chicken is they take all of the inedible parts of the animals that are left over after they take off the actual chicken breasts and things that they can give to butchers and stuff like that. So there's eyeballs, gizzards, the actual intestines and bowels of the animal, okay, or chicken. They grind them all up. They put them into a centrifuge where they are spun around at a really high temperature. Oftentimes they're then treated with ammonia, right? And this is how we get mechanically separated chicken. Now in the area of beef, this is commonly known as pink slime. Right? Okay, so Jamie Oliver did these really interesting exposés on pink slime, and same basic deal, right? They take all the trimmings, grind it up, treat it with ammonia, and now it's something that is safe for our consumption. But I sure as heck don't want to eat it. Okay, so mechanically separated chicken and turkey. Also in these processed meat products, we're going to see things like sodium nitrite. So nitrates and nitrites have gotten a lot of attention for being food chemicals we don't want to consume. Again, we've got sodium benzoate, which is another red flag chemical we don't want to consume. High fructose corn syrup. But again, the high fructose corn syrup pales in comparison to this mechanically separated chicken. So yes, these Oscar Mayer wieners are on my list of 9 foods to never eat. And I just encourage you to look at the ingredient label of any kind of meat product you're about to consume. And if it has something that says mechanically separated whatever, put it back. So your healthy alternative here is going to be actually going to the butcher department in your grocery store and getting an actual cut of meat that doesn't have any ingredients in it. Now, if you can find grass-fed organic meat, that's always going to be better. Something that comes from an actual farm that's raised humanely and fed its natural diet. The factory farmed meat, again, is a topic I've addressed in a lot of other videos. So organic, grass-fed is going to be the optimal, but even if it's conventional meat, getting it actually from the butcher, an actual piece of meat, is going to be much better than these little wieners here. All right, next up. Cheetos. Now, I am just as sad as you are to have to say goodbye to Cheetos, but it's really in your best interest to do so, okay? So we're starting out with enriched cornmeal. So this is a highly processed food ingredient in and of itself because it is a corn product. It is likely genetically modified or GMO. Most of the corn grown in the United States is genetically modified, and because we don't label it here, you won't know looking at the label, but you can just assume that any kind of corn product is probably GMO. Moving on, we have more genetically modified oils like canola, soybean, and corn oils. Then we have whey protein concentrate and monosodium glutamate, so MSG. So MSG is an excitotoxin, so it has the same excitatory effects on your brain like aspartame, like we were talking about a minute ago. Okay, so literally this is more of a chemical response than an actual flavor, and it's setting off the excitatory responses in your brain to really make you excited about eating it and to eat more of it. So in laboratory experiments, they actually use MSG to cause diabetes in healthy lab rats because they need some lab rats that have diabetes so they can test different diabetes drugs on them. And when they need a diabetic lab rat, what do? They give it MSG. We also have artificial colors. So this one contains yellow number 6. Now the artificial colors are again something that really go on my list of things to absolutely avoid at all cost. Again, these chemicals have been implicated in learning disabilities, in inability to focus, Okay, so especially when we're talking about kids, making sure our kids aren't consuming artificial colors is going to be super duper important. So this little baby crams in GMOs, MSG, artificial colors, not to mention that it's just an incredibly highly processed, refined carbohydrate, and something that I would definitely avoid. So let's talk about alternatives, right? Because everybody likes to have something crispy sometimes. I actually brought regular Lay's potato chips to be an alternative. Now, clearly, I would not tell you that this is a healthy food to consume. The real healthy alternative would be actually eating a potato. And then there's also things like kale chips and other healthy veggie chips that we can make that are a lot nicer. But even these regular potato chips are not as bad as the Cheetos, right? So we've got potatoes, oil, and salt. These are still genetically modified because they have the canola and or corn oil in them. But at least we're saving ourselves from the MSG and the artificial colors and the enriched cornmeal, okay? So actually the potatoes are an ingredient in this, where here we just have some enriched cornmeal weird product that they're using as a base. So optimally, carrot sticks, celery sticks, you can get a crunch out of those as well. That would be a real healthy alternative. But even these Lay's potato chips are going to be better for you than the Cheetos. Alrighty, Slim Fast. And look at that cool way they shaped that bottle there to really make us think that this is going to help us get slim. Look at the great waistline I'm going to get from this little baby. Okay, but you're too smart for that. You're not going to fall for it. Now, I did an entire video on these meal replacement protein shake beverages, comparing and contrasting different brands of them. So you can check out that video for a more detailed discussion. But the bottom line here, number one, just looking at this ingredient list, they've made it really hard to read. Just first and foremost thing to notice. Whenever somebody's ingredient list is really hard to read, that's a good sign that they don't want you to know what's in their product. Okay, so starting with fat-free milk, which I'm actually going to get to a little bit later on. And then the third ingredient is sugar. Anyone who's trying to lose weight probably should know that sugar is not something you want to consume as the third ingredient in something that's going to supposedly help you lose weight. Moving on, we have lots of other chemical cocktail type ingredients, mono and diglycerides, which are just kind of a code name for trans fats or partially hydrogenated fats, which are the absolute worst fats that we could consume. So they're using fat-free milk, but then they're using these processed fats to add back in instead. Makes absolutely no sense. And then we also have, once again, the artificial sweeteners. So in this drink, it's sucralose and acesulfame potassium. And again, this is just a perfect example of them coming up with different names for things so that hopefully you won't know what they are. So they know that most people are now privy to the aspartame and know to avoid it. So they use these other ones that are a little bit less known, right? Most people don't realize that acesulfame potassium and sucralose are also artificial sweeteners, which I highly recommend you avoiding. So this is something that's, because of the artificial sweeteners, it's actually going to cause you to consume more calories and be more hungry, is not going to help you lose weight. It has those processed fats in it, which are actually worse than the fats which would have been contained if they had just used normal milk. There are far healthier sources of protein that you can get. If you want to see the alternatives, check out my other video on protein meal replacement shakes. All right, let's do this big guy. Okay, I'm so sorry. But Twinkies are my next food. Here we go. Here he is. Look at him. All right, so I mean, I always knew that Twinkies were probably not something we want to eat for our health. But then when I actually saw this ingredient label, man, I had no idea, okay? So we're starting out with enriched bleached flour. Again, I go in detail about that in the Big Mac video. Partially hydrogenated oils, so there's your trans fats. Again, these are the absolute worst, most unhealthy fats that you can eat. And then What I was actually most surprised to see on the label is beef fat. So I knew Twinkies were bad, but I didn't realize that they weren't even vegetarian. So beef fat. I don't know, did you know that there was beef fat in the Twinkie? Did you? Did you know that? I don't know. Leave a comment. Let me know. Maybe it's old news. Maybe I'm the only one who didn't know about beef fat in the Twinkie. Modified cornstarch, polysorbate 60, natural and artificial flavors, potassium sorbate, xanthan gum, yellow 5, and red 40. So here again, we've got artificial sweeteners, GMOs, trans fats, high fructose corn syrup, highly processed bleached wheat flour, beef fat. I don't even know where to count that. So your healthy alternative to something like Twinkies is going to actually be going to a bakery and getting an actual baked item from an actual cook, okay? So one of my favorite things I like to say about these processed foods is that they are made in laboratories by scientists. They're not made in kitchens by sweet little mamas wearing little aprons and stuff, okay? They're made in laboratories by scientists. So actually going to an actual bakery or buying the ingredients yourself and making some little baked item or pastry, even though that's not necessarily a healthy thing to consume, right? It's gonna be way better for you than this chemical frankenfood beef fat laden Twinkie, which is just freaking gross in my opinion. Okay, coming up next, skim milk, fat-free milk. Now, hopefully you're not as ticked off about me bashing fat-free milk as maybe you were about the Twinkies or the Cheetos. So why is fat-free milk on my list of foods to never eat? Because most people think of skim milk as being something that's going to help them lose weight, right? All of these fat-free products got a lot of attention and were really promoted as something that was going to be good for weight loss. But is it true? So the first thing to note is that there is not a cow on this beautiful green earth that has skim milk coming out of its udders. Okay, and what that means is that when you see fat-free milk in the store, this is a highly processed food or highly processed beverage. Another consideration about fat-free milk and other fat-free products, and I actually brought a reduced fat peanut butter here as well. You'll notice there's a lot of these fat-free and reduced fat products on the market now. So let's talk about why I would put these on my list of things to never eat. So number one, the body needs healthy fats. It relies on healthy fats. They're essential for the health of our brain and all of the functions of our brain working properly, right? So that's energy, that's emotions, that's feeling full and satisfied. And if we're drinking lots of fat-free things or only eating fat-free foods, eliminating fat from our diet, we're going to have this perpetual problem of perpetually being hungry. We're never going to really feel satisfied. In addition to that, you know, anytime we process something and take out a part of it, we're compromising our body's ability to digest that food. So especially in the case of dairy, your body really needs the fat just to digest it. Okay, so taking out the fat is not doing you any favors. And in the case of these reduced fat or fat-free peanut butters, what you'll see on the label is that what they've taken out in fat, they have replaced with all other kinds of crazy different chemicals. Ferric orthophosphate, peroxidine hydrochloride, and lots of sugar as well, okay, right? So it's another thing you'll see. Foods that are fat-free will contain a lot of sugar, and foods that are sugar-free will contain a lot of fat. So just avoiding those chemical frankenfoods altogether is going to be a much better bet. And your alternatives would be whole milk. Actually drink the whole milk, and especially if you're drinking milk to try and satisfy your hunger, drink the freaking whole milk. It'll actually maybe satisfy your hunger. And same thing goes for these, right? If you're actually going to eat peanut butter, eat the actual peanut butter and eat it with the fats. Those fats are healthy, and they're what's going to actually help you feel full and satisfied after eating that food. Next up, we've got Kool-Aid and Skittles, okay? So you probably already know what I'm going to say about these, right? These are loaded with the artificial colors that I was talking about earlier. And it's really important to note that these artificial colors are especially important that we don't feed them to our kids, okay? We have increasing diagnoses of ADHD and other learning disability type issues, and they know that artificial colors can be contributing factors. And I've known people personally who take artificial colors out of their child's diet, and the learning disabilities, behavioral issues just completely go away. It's definitely worth a shot, right? So, of course, you know, these Kool-Aid things, they're actually telling you to add sugar to them, and they actually tell you to add Splenda to them, which is just a super horrible idea, okay? Because then you're combining the artificial sweeteners and the artificial colors. I wouldn't recommend this for adults, and I definitely wouldn't recommend it for children, okay? Same thing goes for the Skittles. Loads and loads and loads of artificial sweeteners, of artificial colors, and then a whole bunch of high fructose corn syrup and sugar and all of those things as well. So your alternative, okay, is eating fruit. It is really interesting how many of these different candies are fruit flavored, right? They're actually, you know, trying to taste like fruit. The best thing you can do is actually eat the fruit. And if it is something for your kids, make it fun. Let them play with it. Let them, you know, have a really fun time eating it. Make it something fun. But really important to avoid giving these things to your kids. I would discourage you from consuming them also. And just know that even a regular candy bar, I think I have a Snickers in here, that even a regular candy bar is gonna be at least a step up from one of these artificially colored chemical frankenfoods. So before I leave the topic of Snickers and candies, I also want to talk about these cookies, okay? So there are a lot of these convenience foods that you find in gas stations, right? Cookies and things that you find in your convenience stores and stuff like that. And you just need to realize that this is a really highly processed food, okay? So we have, starting with enriched flour, then we have sugar, vegetable shortening, okay, which again is our genetically modified oils like canola, TBHQ, which is this crazy preservative, tertiary butylated hydroxyquinone, which I addressed in, I don't even remember which video, but we'll figure out which video and link you to it. Also has high fructose corn syrup and molasses. And then we keep going down and we see those mono and diglycerides, which are our trans fats, caramel color, which was one of the ingredients in soda that I talked about in my soda video. So again, we're really piling on, adding insult to injury here with these types of bakery items. And I would put this kind of in the same category with the Twinkies. Now, a Snickers bar, obviously this isn't something super healthy for you, but when we compare the ingredients between these two products, you'll actually notice there are a lot less ingredients in the Snickers bar than we have in these crazy cookies. And so I would actually consider the Snickers bar a better option than this crazy chemical cocktail that we have in these cookies. Now again, we still have GMOs in the Snickers bar. We still have sugar, corn syrup, partially hydrogenated soybean oil. So there's our GMO trans fats. But again, I just want to give you a comparison so that you have a frame of reference for knowing, you know, which is better, which is maybe a little bit worse. Your best bet for chocolate is going to be dark chocolate. So even the Snickers bar, which has over a dozen ingredients, okay, we could compare to this Lindt dark chocolate bar, which has 6 ingredients. Now, clearly this is still candy. It still contains sugar. I'm not trying to tell you that it's a health food, but in comparison, we have a much better product with something like this. So usually dark chocolate is actually going to contain less sugar, okay? We have we don't have all of the crazy added fats, the preservatives, and all those things that we found in the cookies, and it tastes amazing. So dark chocolate is my alternative for these crazy chocolate chip cookies right here. It's not delivery. Okay, so in this section, I want to include frozen pizzas and microwave meals. So this isn't your conventional TV dinner, but this is a little instant microwave meal. And again, I just would reiterate pretty much all the same things that we talked about in some of these other foods, okay? So we're starting out with enriched flour in both of these cases. And in the case of Easy Mac and pretty much any kind of processed food that you find, enriched flour is gonna be your first ingredient. And then moving on, modified food starch, natural flavors. We've got lots of preservatives. We have, as we get to the bottom, DATEM, which is diacetyl tartaric ester of mono and diglycerides. So again, those are those trans fats, or basically code word for trans fats we talked about earlier. Sodium stearoyl lactylate is a chemical I talked about in the Big Mac video. Looking at this guy, this little microwave meal, he also has monosodium glutamate. Again, we're looking at highly processed, refined carbohydrates. We're looking at MSG, we're looking at GMOs. Just as a general rule of thumb, these microwave meals are really the worst of the worst in terms of the ingredients that they contain. And I could do an entire video just talking about the ingredients in this little rice-a-roni thing, okay? But I'm sure this video is long enough as it is, so I'm gonna try and round it out. There are some different organic instant meals. Amy's Organics is a pretty good product. Now, it's always gonna be better when you actually make your meal from scratch, and it's always gonna be better when you don't microwave it. But just finding some of those organic ones that have a lot less chemicals on them is gonna be a step in the right direction. And then another little way you can improve the microwave meals is to just cook them in a toaster oven instead of a microwave. Okay, I've talked about the negative effects of microwaves in other videos, so that's another reason why these foods are on my list of things to never eat. But again, we're talking about large amounts of food chemicals. These instant frozen pizzas and microwave meals are really the worst of the worst. And before I leave the topic of pizzas, I just want to show you one more thing. Which is that these meaty ones are significantly worse than the ones that don't have meat, okay? So we can compare these ingredient lists here, and you can just see this one's about a third of the size. You know, this one has a little bit bigger font, but just by getting the non-meat one, you're doing a little bit better for yourself, okay? It's at least a step in the right direction. Because when we look at this meaty one, we see mechanically separated, okay? Mechanically separated chicken, beef, blah, 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 blah. Tons and tons of other chemicals. Actually, I think even more chemicals than we have in the regular cheese pizza. So just one simple thing you can do is to get a vegetarian one, okay? Get one that doesn't have meat on it, because this processed meat products on these instant foods, it's probably even worse than our little Oscar Mayer wieners here, okay? So that is another little tip to take with you to at least make a little step in the right direction by avoiding meat versions of these, frozen pizzas and microwave meals. So last, but definitely not least, we've got sugar-free Red Bull. Okay, so energy drinks are the last thing on my list of things to never eat. And sugar-free energy drinks are actually even worse than the regular energy drinks. So I've got a regular Monster right here as well. But again, once you've got the sugar-free one, now you're really adding insult to injury, right? Because now on top of all these other chemicals, we've got the artificial sweeteners in there as well. And so in the same way I made the recommendation that Coke is actually better for you than Diet Coke, the same thing goes here too, okay? Just not getting the sugar-free is at least a step in the right direction. So I did an entire interview with Dr. Balanzi about energy drinks, and I highly encourage you to check out that video if energy drinks are something that you regularly contain. Again, the chemicals in these drinks are very excitatory, right? And anytime we're talking about things that are excitatory to the brain, we can actually basically burn ourselves out. All right, so we talked about the aspartame, we talked about the MSG, these things that have excitatory effects on the brain. They're highly dangerous for us in that respect, and they can actually be neurotoxic, which means killing your brain cells in that respect. Furthermore, anytime we're using caffeine or any of the other chemicals that these drinks contain to artificially boost our energy, we are putting a lot of stress on our adrenal glands, the glands that are normally there to make energy for us. And consuming enough of these, we're actually going to burn those glands out completely and get what they call adrenal fatigue. So this is, like chronic fatigue syndrome, okay? And oftentimes people who do have chronic fatigue used to be big energy drink drinkers or used to drink a lot of caffeine. And we've, again, got several videos on the topic of energy drinks that I highly recommend you check out. If you're looking for alternative things to give you energy, again, I would direct you over to this coconut water, which is a great natural source of electrolytes. And then just know that if you can lower the amount of caffeine that you're consuming, lower the amount of energy drinks you're consuming, it may take a little time, but your own body will regain its ability to make energy for you. And you should actually find a lot more energy naturally. Things like sugar and caffeine zap our body's ability to make energy. So I highly recommend that you avoid them as much as possible. Thank you so much for watching this video. I look forward to reading all of the hate mail that I get after I've bashed everybody's favorite foods. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this video. Let me know if there's a food that you thought you would see in this video and you didn't, or if you were surprised to see any of these foods in the video. If you want to learn more about me, you can visit my website, CorrinaRachel.com. I have over 100 different videos on health and wellness that are all completely free for you to view. So I hope that you will check out some of my other videos and subscribe to the channel so you can see all of my future videos. Coming up, I'm going to show you what is in a Chicken McNugget. I'm going to show you a healthy way to make a Big Mac. I'm going to give you even more alternatives to these foods that I've talked about today. So I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for watching.